Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we
very
do.
good. Okay, so I'm very honored to be a part of this panel here of this alliance. And On the invitation of Don Winter and Valerie, good friends of mine. Will be the second time in 40 years of teaching that I've written down what I'm going to say, because when I saw 30 minutes, I usually take 15 hours to introduce this context, as we also use a lot of ceremony and experiencing in the heart and in the body what I'm going to speak of. But so I'll be reading, and I hope you have fun with me about this. So, neo-humanism, transhumanism, shamanism, we're going back to the roots. What do they all have in common? And that is us humans. What makes us what we are? What distinguishes us from the other life forms on planet Earth? Two things. First, we have free will. All other beings on Earth do exactly what they're supposed to do. We call this their original instructions. Modern society calls this instinct. All beings on Earth have their place and their role in the ecology, and everything they do makes the Earth a better, more viable, vital biosphere. Only we humans can act in ways that destroy our earthly habitat. This is called free will. Secondly, we have an intelligence that allows us to invent, to create, and to co create. What's the difference between these three? Invention is technology. These are tools that are disconnected from our role here on planet Earth. They're disconnected from original instructions, and they have no emotional component. A machine doesn't have emotions. Creating or creation is like the arts. It does involve an emotional component. Co-creation is accomplishing our mission on Earth. It's accomplishing and following our original instructions. It's creating with everything that is, with the laws of the universe. And what is our mission? What is our role? What are our original instructions? That is true for all human beings, is to create paradise. Our world is meant to be a paradise. This is a given, since when we live in paradise, we develop to our maximum potential. It's also a given because we have the possibility of doing this, and thus we have the responsibility to do this. All indigenous, native, aboriginal nations and tribes all over planet Earth are all free co-creators. They answer to no one except their community council. They all live in a pristine, beautiful, wonderful, life-enhancing environment that promotes the life of all the beings that live around them. They understand and work with the natural elements around them. Their way of life continues unchanged for millennia. It gives them the maximum development a person can experience. Proof of the maximum development is multidimensional. We're going to speak of the four aspects that we all carry as human beings. We have a physical body, we have an emotional body, we have a mental body, and we have a spiritual body. Let's see what that does in a natural world. In a natural environment, there are very few diseases, and people have very incredibly healthy bodies. They easily accomplish feats of strength and endurance that go way beyond what modern man can do. We don't have time to give examples of this, but if you research indigenous cultures, you'll see many examples of that. Emotionally, they have great stability, as their emotional bodies have been nourished ever since their birth. The people live close together. They love each other. Collaboration, sharing, emotionally stable and life enhancing friendships, time for family, for friends, for celebrations of joy and life are common day occurrences. Mentally, they have incredible natural sciences. They understand the stars. And their calendars are very much more advanced than that of modern society, as they are based on the heavenly bodies. They understand nature intimately. They have extraordinary memory. Their history, for example, goes back 10 times farther than that of our current society's history and its memory of it. They have a lot of wisdom and they value the experience and contribution of their elders. And last but not least, they have incomparable spiritual attainment and realization. This is manifested in what we call shamanism. Shamanism is universal, and it exists in all natural, indigenous, aboriginal people all over planet Earth. What is the spirituality of why is the spirituality of indigenous nations greater than that of our current modern world? What do all shamans do that makes them what they are, shamans? They communicate with the invisible. In a traditional society, when a person says that they are shaman, or whatever their word in their language for that is, they have to prove it. Communicating with spirit gives them the ability to change the laws of the world we live in. The world is created by spirit. There is no objective reality outside of consciousness. Thus, a shaman will be asked to prove his ability to do things that go beyond what is possible for others. Spirituality is the most sacred of all that we are and must be imbued with truth. Thus, this testing to assert the reality of one's abilities. The powers of the mind must be demonstrated. Living in harmony with Great Spirit's creation in nature has given the indigenous nations incredible abilities. Thus, as an example, the multiple accounts of the extraordinary feats that Europeans saw when they first came to America. Shamans were able to part the clouds, to calm a storm, to call the wind, to call the rain, to fly through the airs, we call them skywalkers, to teleport to different places instantaneously, even to different planets, to resurrect a dead person, to heal a broken bone in a few minutes, to look into the future in the path, and so on and so forth. So that's proof that of the incomparable attainment, spiritual attainment of the indigenous nations, and you'll find this all over the earth. We now look at what has destroyed this way of life. We call this civilization. The existence of civilization is a recent occurrence in human history. They have been here for only 12,000 years. As a comparison, some of our Native American nations have an oral history that goes back 127,500 years. This has been proven by examining the geological strata of the Earth's crust and comparing it with our history. What a civilization does, what is a civilization, is that they use technology to dominate nature and other people for the benefit of an elite. All civilizations have a hierarchy. The elite of this hierarchy can be a monarchy, can be military, can be democracy, can be communism, can be financial. But in every case, in the past 12,000 years, all civilizations have had the same trajectory. They have grown very rapidly, accumulating wealth and power for their elite at an extraordinary rate at the expense of their population that are literally slaves, for example, paying taxes. Having so much wealth that they don't know how to use it, their elite becomes decadent and depraved and disconnected from reality. Thus, that civilization falls. This has happened 24 times in the past 12,000 years. The Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Romans, the Greeks, all previous civilizations have had the same trajectory. Now, this civilization has become global, but since it's not in sync with the laws of nature, it's going to fall. And this time it's going to make quite a boom. So, all over the world, native indigenous communities have tried to resist the onslaught of civilizations. This is very significant. None of them have voluntarily accepted the civilized way of life. It has had to be imposed upon them in violent, inhuman, cruel, and ruthless ways. The destruction of indigenous nations is akin to the destruction of our ecology and environment. It's the same process. That's the current situation we're in today. Humanity has been reduced to very sick bodies requiring medication, physically diminished in strength and endurance, emotionally unstable with the highest rate in strife, divorce, and suicide in the history of mankind, mentally blind, ignorant of reality, and dependent on computers and telephones for their memory, and spiritually very deprived. People are now akin to biorobots and cyborgs. That is where the powers that have taken over our world, as illustrated by this COVID crisis, are taking us. They want to make cyborgs and obedient biorobots out of all of us. So we can't leave it there. We're not going to accept this. So we need solutions. But one of the first things we need to do to bring about the solution is to understand the problem completely. And this is some of the notions that very, very few people carry. And that is that we first need to be aware that all technology is a hindrance to human development, without exception. We are united with the world in a symbiotic, interdependent relationship with the universe. When we are immersed in the natural world, we develop to our maximum potential as we are then in contact, in intimate connection with the universe, the entire universe, because that's reflected in resonant harmony throughout the planet. Let us give some examples to illustrate this. Imagine children that are immersed in a native Aboriginal family. They are surrounded by love and they are with their family all the time. The natural world around them is replete with thousands of multidimensional stimuli to all senses, the odors, the sounds, the colors, the textures, the tastes, and the feelings of the natural world. The world around them is alive. Everything is breathing, moving, evolving. Everything is real and true, as there are no lies in nature. Now, picture our modern society and the same children spending most of their awake lives in a classroom. They are deprived of seeing what their parents are doing and of their daily affection. They are surrounded by strangers, and some of these strangers are cruel. They don't have the ongoing stimuli of the odors, sound, colors, textures, and feelings of the natural world. They often don't know where their food comes from, and most of what they learned is conditioned and programmed by the system, as the governments often impose the basic curriculum to most, if not all, schools. That's one example. All technology, without exception, also reduces man's abilities. It replaces talents, spiritual muscles, aptitudes that can be reproduced by the human mind. If you walk with crutches or prosthesis, the muscles normally used for that activity when you don't have those prosthesis or crutches will atrophy. A good example to illustrate how our development is limited by technology is the telephone. Here, our province, every 2 or 3 years, prior to the arrival of the Europeans, all the shamans in this area, which is immense landscape, it's like 4 to 5 times the area that is presently France. It's thousands and thousands of square kilometers. All the shamans, every 2 or 3 years, they'd get together to meet, to talk, to share their wisdom. How did they know when and where to meet? By telepathy. The easiest extrasensorial aptitude to master is telepathy. But why would you need to develop telepathy if you can more easily use the phone? Thus, this ability is generally absent in almost all humans today, although it's the easiest ones to master. Yet, if you look at the animals in nature, what modern society considers as inferior species, all of them demonstrate some form of telepathy. Another way of showing how technology is not conducive to our development, health, and happiness is to realize that all technology is dead. A machine can't reproduce itself. It's one day going to break and need fixing or replacement. Let's take an example. A car, artificial locomotion, and a horse, natural locomotion. A horse will repair itself if it's injured. It will produce offspring for a continued use of this means of locomotion. It does not produce any pollution. On the contrary, its dejections nourishes the soil and are excellent fertilizer. We can have a very emotional, very nourishing relationship with a horse. That would not feel so healthy with a car, would it? And so on and so forth. So that's a few examples. Now let's look at indigenous technology, because indigenous in technology is alive. That's why a person's tools was often buried with them when they died, because they were the only one that could work with those tools. There's two extraordinary examples I would like to give of this. Some of the native hunters, and I've heard this in several nations, had made bows that were so powerful, some were made of bone, that they could shoot a buffalo and the arrow would go right through and fell the buffalo on the other side. Two buffalo with one arrow. There's not a bow by technology today that can do this. And despite the fact that this man was not the strongest in his nation, no other person could pull on that bow. Why? This is magical living technology. It's alive. Another example I'd like to give was this warriors. This is documented. A warrior that when the white people started invading his land and they became in conflict with these soldiers, he would rush at them with his horse, screaming at them with his kuba stick. And all these soldiers were firing their rifles at him. And he would come back to his people and say, it tickles, and he would shake his shirt and you'd see all the bullets fall down on the ground, leather shirt. This is living magical technology. He was not injured. And this is true of everything in native life. If you notice, in an indigenous, natural, traditional communities all across the world, all the implements are decorated. They have added some of their energy to the tools that they are using, making them living, breathing substances that have significance and power. These are alive, living tools that come from nature. Modern technology is dead and comes from a science of death. It harms the environment to create them, and it reduces the development potential of those who use them. Thus, we see that modern technology is a major obstacle to holistic development. Yet, we need to find solutions to this. We know today that putting people that have lived and been educated in the current modern society into the natural world is impossible. They don't have the knowledge, the stamina, the memory of natural phenomena, the physical strength and endurance to survive in the natural world. They no longer have the interpersonal relationship skills that are required for community living. Their spirituality is either non existent or based on religions that have the same hierarchy structure as do the civilizations they emanate from. So, how do we come back to sanity? How do we come back to restoring our biosphere that is very damaged? 90% of the fauna has died in the last 10 years. And to the spiritual powers that make us true human beings. The path has been given. Never would Creator Spirit abandon us. The way back to sanity and balance has been delivered onto humanity by the high beings that guide us. It's a simple, practical, healthy, and humble way. It's called the family domain. Every family should take responsibility for a small piece of land. This need not be more than 1 hectare, 10,000 square meters, or approximately 2 acres. This is sufficient to nourish a family for all time. On this piece of land, they should grow their own food. This will do wonders for the health of the family and for the family unity. The specifics of this plan are the following. This piece of land should never be sold, only given to inheritance to other children, to the children of the family. It needs to be organized in a way that the family pays no taxes on the land or the produce or the artisanship of the family. It needs to belong to the family and not to any other institution or community structure. Yet it's important that the family domains seek to live in proximity to other family domains and to people of like mind. In this way, slowly, simply, surely, and humbly, we will heal our humanity in biosphere, one family, one piece of land at a time. It's okay and even essential to use technology to create and sustain these family domains. Yet, we should seek to reduce this technology in time as we slowly find our way back to paradise. A family producing its own food will no longer need the system. There will no longer be a need for wars, as why would we go to the neighbor when we have better what's growing at home? Because, you know, a human being is able to influence and create the world around us. And thus we are like God and goddesses for the earth. All beings, all elements of the natural world will have a tendency to respond to our requests, to our needs, and to our desires. Thus, the fruits, the nuts, the vegetables that grow on the family domains will heal us and nourish us as no other foods can. This is because we have given the right information to our plant partners to make this biosphere the paradise it truly is. Liberty is the essential component that identifies us as human beings. This is illustrated by our unique free will that distinguishes us from all other beings on planet Earth. The liberty of a family on their family domain should be sacred, undeniable, and indisputable, as it's the will of the Creator and the indispensable condition that makes it possible for us to create paradise. The current world order is thus doing its utmost to impose its will and its agenda on humanity by limiting as much as possible our, our individual liberties. They do this to serve a very small and corrupt elite. The solution is the family domain. We cannot really affront the powers that be. Their influence and financial means defy description. They have the legal systems, the media, the police, and the armies of the governments of the world at their disposal. What we need is a discreet, simple, humble, down to earth, family sized, peaceful way of coming back to our original instructions. This will bring us back to what Great Spirit has intended for us, paradise. This is the family domain. It will give us happiness, health, and harmony with the entire world and universe. There is great logic in this plan that Great Spirit has given us through the great grace of the great masters. The only way to protect the ecology that gives us our lives is to produce our sustenance from the land around us. It's the only way we can truly protect the environment. Only by cultivating the earth, by earning our lives from the soil beneath our feet, can we truly understand and protect our beautiful Earth Mother. Only by honoring the land we protect and nourish can we be in harmony with the universe, as all things are connected. Only when connected with the universe and in alignment with body, heart, mind, and spirit can we develop to our highest potential. I'm in agreement with the thought of this alliance that the entire living world is one cosmic family and that our highest human enhancement comes from inner development. But I would add that this development cannot manifest if we are not united with our biosphere, our beautiful and sacred Earth Mother. Only by cultivating the land, our relationship with its inhabitants of the mineral, plant, animal, and elemental kingdoms, and the gradual reduction of technology, will we regain our acutely threatened humanity. I've spoken on my relations.
Oh. You made me fly because only Earth can make us fly, you know, when we are grounded and we are truly high. Everything else is like this illusionary thing. But yeah, that's my personal view. Thank you so much. I try to live these principles. I hope I can become maybe a student. I'm the baby of shamanism.
I can answer a few questions. I think we have a few minutes.
I have a question.
Yeah, Amar.
Listening.
Go ahead, Amar.
Okay, first, Blue Eagle, much gratitude for sharing all this wisdom. None of it is new to me. In fact, it's very exact. And my question is, why is it your teaching so exact to my brother shaman pages and indigenous chiefs so far away from you here in Brazil? Can you explain that to them, please?
It's the same all over the planet. It's only one reality. The truth is one. I met shamans from all over the planet, and we all share the same basic truth. You know, it's universal. Shamanism is universal. It's comes from the land. Of course, our ways of doing things are all different because they come from the land around us. But the fundamental principles beneath it, honoring the elders, honoring the Earth Mother, honoring this, talking with spirit, enhancing our lives. You know, our history is really, really, really old. And we've seen what happens in prior lifetimes, not eras, I should say, when it's not the first time that humanity has gone into technology. And every time they do this, the world is destroyed. We are entering in that period now, you know. And so we've learned that we can't rely on technology. It's not the right way. We have to come back to our roots. And that is being in harmony with the land around us. The law has to come from the land.
Haushaush.
Thank you very much. Blue Eagle, thank you so much.